Hello, I'm Valerie and I'm 50 years old. This story is going to be pretty long because it did happen throughout a couple of years, but I can tell you that my daughter and I are out of the whole toxic situation and are living much happier lives than I ever thought we'd be able to live. This story starts with me meeting my husband, Ted, through some mutual friends. We went on a couple of dates and pretty quickly fell in love. We dated for around 3 years before we got married. I was ecstatic that I got to marry him because he was genuinely like the other half of me. We completed each other in a way that I can't explain. After a year of marriage, Ted began asking me to start trying for a baby. Now, at that time, I was very much scared of giving birth. Plus, I had a lot of complications with my reproductive health, and I didn't want to jeopardize either mine or the future baby's life. But Ted was persistent, so I eventually gave in. My entire pregnancy was a trying time because of my many complications. Pregnancy became a huge pain. But Ted was very patient and caring in the first 3 months, until he began frequently traveling for work. It only got harder from then on. But Ted did make it in time for the birth of our daughter, Kendall. Ted and I lived in a pretty big, cozy apartment that was rented. We had no plans to move because we knew that we weren't stable enough to buy a house. When I was around 7 months pregnant, we had a new neighbor move into the apartment next to ours. Even though Ted was very hesitant and against us going to meet her, I felt like both of us being pregnant would lead to some connection. So I dragged Ted over to her apartment door and rang the bell. "Hello, I'm Valerie, and this is my husband, Ted. We're your neighbors, and we just wanted to introduce ourselves." "It's lovely to meet you guys. My name's Cassie. Why don't you come on in?" "I'm sorry if this is weird, but I just thought that it would be lovely to have another companion who's also pregnant like me. Ted has been really busy with work trips, and I could use the company." "Tell me about it. I was about to come over later on this evening anyway because I could use the help too." "Where's your husband?" "Oh, I don't have one. The man who got me pregnant ended up abandoning me, so I had to raise this little one all by myself." "Oh, you poor thing. We're always right across from you if you ever need anything, okay? Even if I may not come to help you out, Ted will be right there." "Oh, no, I wouldn't want to be such a bother." "Nonsense. It would never be a bother for us, right, Ted?" Yeah. At that time, I did think it was pretty odd that Ted seemed so uncomfortable with Cassie. I mean, what reason did he have to be uncomfortable? I had pretty much desensitized him to the gross parts of pregnancy, and there was no way he would have to witness Cassie in that light. Not to mention, at best, he'd only have to run small errands for her. I tried to ask him about why he looked so uncomfortable that day, but he told me to just forget about it and that he was tired. I let it go because I saw no reason to ask him anymore, although if I had pressed further at that point, I would have probably saved my daughter and me a lot of pain. Anyway, Cassie and I spent a lot of time together and bonded over our pregnancies. Ted seemed very uncomfortable with the whole thing, but refused to tell me why. He would just tell me it was weird that I randomly became friends with a stranger, but isn't that how people make friends? After I gave birth to my daughter, Kendall, life became even fuller. Ted and I got really busy with adjusting to our new routines, but we also kept Cassie in mind. I mean, I barely managed to get through my pregnancy, and I had Ted's help. I couldn't imagine what it must have been like for Cassie. Anyways, 3 months after I gave birth, Cassie did too, and she had a baby girl named Maeve. Since we lived so close together and our kids were so close in age, the two of them grew up really close. We would have a bunch of play dates for our girls, which I have to admit we also used as downtime for us. Overall, We had a pretty picturesque life. As the years passed, the girls grew older and began to find comfort in each other's homes. That was until they were in their first year of high school. Maeve suddenly stopped coming over, and Kendall refused to see her. Of course, as any mother would be, I was very concerned. At first I thought it was just a silly little fight that both of them had and were refusing to mend things, but then months passed and the animosity between them only grew worse. So I sat down with Kendall one night and asked her what had happened. "Honey, I know you don't want to talk about it, but could you please tell me what went down between you and Maeve?" "Mom, I don't want to talk about it." "I know, but you guys used to be such good friends. Hell, you grew up together. What happened?" "Look, I wish I had the answer too, okay?" "Huh? What do you mean?" "I don't know, Mom. We had our summer break, and when high school started, Maeve just started ignoring me. She refused to talk to me and even began to poke fun at me with her friends." "What? Why would she do that?" "I have no idea. I tried to talk to her many times, but she would either look at me with disgust or she would mock me and make fun of me." "Oh, honey, that's horrible. Do you want me to speak to Cass?" "No, please don't. It will probably make things worse for me in school." All right. My mouth's sealed. But if Maeve ever does anything too bad, you need to promise me that you'll come tell me about it." "I promise." Curiosity was gnawing at me. I wanted to know why Maeve started behaving that way so badly, but I had no way of doing it. Besides, I did note that Cassie never approached me about the girls not hanging out anymore. In fact, she barely ever spoke to me. I realized that I never made the attempt to talk to her either. So I tried to change that, but Cassie would always be too busy to talk. Sometimes Maeve would answer the door whenever I went over, and she would look me over with disgust, and I immediately understood how Kendall must have been feeling. I tried to talk to her too, but she would just walk away from the door and call for Cassie. Eventually, we just didn't speak that much. Life carried on as if normal. In my daughter's final year of high school, I began planning out our finances to support Kendall. I didn't want her burdened by any student loans because I knew firsthand just how long it took to clear them off. Not to mention, with the economy that we were in, she would have taken even longer. The stress of having to repay a loan was not something I wanted her to ever feel. That was why Ted and I planned way ahead and began saving a year before Kendall was born. We only wanted the best for her. She knew about this savings account we had for her, and she knew just how much was in it. There was enough money in it to allow her to go to an Ivy League and still have some left over for her to use however she wanted. Kendall and I were shortlisting colleges one day when I decided to have a look at the savings account we had for her. It just always brought me joy to see how we had ensured a good life for her. But when I saw the account, my heart dropped. Over 2/3 of the amount was gone from it. I tried my best not to freak out in front of Kendall, but I did ask her to go to her room because I had some things to take care of. When she left, I began fully losing my mind. Where could so much money have gone? I looked at the transaction history and saw that it had been withdrawn at an ATM. There was only one person other than me who had access to this account, and that was Ted. I didn't know why he would possibly have needed to withdraw so much money from her account, but I remember just praying really hard that he had not used it up already. I spent the rest of my day an anxious mess as I waited for Ted to come back home from work. Anyway, when Ted finally came back home, he avoided me. Dinner was awkward, and Kendall even asked me if something was wrong with Ted. I assured her that he was just tired and told her to go back to her room. When I walked into mine and Ted's rooms, he was scrolling through social media on his phone. I decided that now he could not ignore me, so he had to tell me what was going on. Okay, so you've been avoiding me, which means that you know what I want to talk about. I actually have no idea. And I haven't been avoiding you. I've just had a tiring day and I want to sleep. You can sleep in a bit, but since you don't know what I want to talk about, then let me enlighten you. Can we please not do this? We have to, because Kendall's future depends on it. I was looking at her savings account today and noticed that a large portion of it got withdrawn from an ATM. The only other person who knows the bank details is you. What did you do with the money and why did you take it out? I really don't want to talk about this. You have no way of getting out of this. If you're in some serious debt or something, you need to tell me. No, it's nothing like that. I just needed to do something out of the goodness of my heart. Goodness of your heart? You can do those things out of your own pocket. You don't steal from your daughter for that. I didn't steal from her. The money is ours until she turns 18. I also contributed to it, so I get to withdraw from it. Kendall turns 18 in 2 months. Do you even know how happy she's been because she was thinking that she could go to Harvard to study law? How could you jeopardize? When you say goodness of your heart, are you talking about Cassie and Maeve? Yes, they were struggling. I wanted to help them out. So you decided to give them our daughter's money. You could have asked me. We could have helped them out separately, and while it may not have been this big of an amount, some help is better than nothing. Look, Maeve wanted to go to a really good university that even we had no way of contributing to. I happened to meet Cassie the day before yesterday, and she was crying about how she was struggling to tell Maeve that she wouldn't be able to get what she wanted. I just felt bad, so I gave her the amount of money she wanted. What about Kendall? What are we going to tell her? She's known for years the amount of money we saved up for her. She's worked hard and studied her butt off for years just so she could go to an Ivy League. What are we going to do about that? Kendall's a smart kid. I'm sure she'll get a scholarship. At that point, I did not want to see his face. I was so filled with anger and resentment against him. I couldn't believe that he would have done something so cruel to his own daughter. I mean, yeah, I felt bad for Maeve and Cassie, but Cassie also had the responsibility of telling her daughter their reality. It felt almost predatory, like she purposefully cried in front of Ted about her problem because she knew that Ted would do anything he could to make her feel better. I slept in the guest bedroom that night. I had a very fitful sleep, but somehow I managed to sleep. I woke up the next morning and Ted had gone to work. I decided that I should try and get the money back from Cassie. I waited until Kendall had gone off to school to go over to Cassie's place. Hey, Val, sorry, I'm in a bit of a hurry right now. I need to get to work. Oh, it's okay. I just needed to ask you something pretty small. All right, what is it? Ted lent you some money the other day, and I just wanted to ask you if you could give it back. That was a huge amount from Kendall's university savings that we had started for her before she was even conceived. Ted took it without informing me. What? Oh, no, I'm so sorry that Ted did that to you. I would never have taken the money if I knew that it was Kendall's. Yeah, so could you return it? I really, really wish I could, but since Ted gave me the money, it's mine now. Not to mention, I've already used a sizable portion of it to get Maeve into her dream college. Well, just give me what's left then. No, like I said, that money is mine now. I'm sorry that something this horrible has happened to you, but I can't give you the money back. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm running late. I was shocked at the way that Cassie was treating me, especially after the fact that we had been living next to each other for so long that we were practically family. I never thought that she'd have such an ugly side to her. I wanted to scream and rip my hair out in my anger and frustration. I went back into the house and finally made myself some breakfast. As I ate, I contemplated all the options that Kendall had left. The money left in Kendall's savings account was enough to get her through community college at worst, maybe 1.5 years through a good university. I figured that the least that Ted could do, since he gave away almost the entirety of Kendall's savings, he could start paying for her college. He had quite a few assets that he could sell to pay off her education without letting her fall into debt. I felt like that was the least he could do to make it up to Kendall, because I knew that she wasn't going to take the news well. That evening I broke the news to Kendall, and she was furious. She cried a lot, and I cried with her too. I couldn't imagine how she had been feeling, but I also knew that I shared a portion of that feeling. Kendall acknowledged that I had nothing to do with it and told me that she was in no way mad at me, just her dad. When Ted came home that evening, she went to her room and locked herself in there. Ted didn't even question where she was, and I assumed that was because he figured that I told her about what had happened. In fact, he barely even looked at me, which was good because I wanted the guilt of his actions to consume him wholly. But I knew I also needed to establish our plan for Kendall going forward. So, what are we doing for Kendall from here on? What do you mean? I thought we established that she'd get into college with a scholarship. Even so, we need to have some backup plan in case that doesn't pan out. It will. There's no need to worry. I've seen kids with half her wit get full rides. It'll be a piece of cake for her. That's very wishful thinking, Ted. There's no way we can rely on that. I've come up with a plan for you to pay for college. Me? Well, both of us. But you have to put in more because you were the one who gave away her money. And since you believe that you contributed that much, I think it's only fair for you to pay that much more than me for Kendall's tuition. Hell no. I'm not doing any of that. Kendall can either get a full ride or she can take a loan and work it off like everyone else. How are you more sympathetic to two people who have become strangers to us than to your own family? What is wrong with you? Look, I don't care what you say, but I'm not paying a penny for Kendall's college. She can use what's left, and you can help her if you want. In my opinion, she should apply for all the scholarships she can. That's it. Good night. I was beyond upset and frustrated at the way Ted was behaving. How could he put someone else's daughter over ours? What was it that made us less important to him? I cried myself to sleep that night and over that week. I kept asking Ted to reach a compromise and provide for his daughter in some way at least, but he refused to budge. He even got his mother, Ophelia, involved in it. If there's one thing you should know about Ophelia, it's that she absolutely hates my guts. She can't stand me, and she makes it known in every way possible, from insulting me to downright physically hurting me by accident. Ophelia loved to go against everything I said and did, even if I was the right one in the situation. So, with Ophelia on his side, Ted saw no reason to give in to my demands. Kendall completely stopped talking to Ted and Ophelia. She refused to even acknowledge them, and neither of them had a problem with that. The both of us worked hard together to get her into a good college, and as luck would have it, she did end up getting a pretty good scholarship at an Ivy League. The scholarship covered about 75% of her tuition, and I could easily cover the rest for her. She would only need to work to support herself, which she was more than happy to do. Kendall always had a big passion for law, and that was what she did for the next 5 years. She rarely came home. Instead, I flew over to visit her. Life at home was unbearable, to say the least. Ophelia moved in with us and constantly tormented me. Ted and I stopped talking and lived like we were roommates. It was only a matter of time before one of us initiated a divorce. I stayed because I knew that getting a divorce would severely dent my finances, and Kendall had dealt with enough issues regarding finances. After Kendall graduated from college, she got herself a good job and started to finally settle down. That was when I initiated the divorce filing. Before I handed Ted the papers, though, I wanted to save up a good amount of money so I had something to fall back on. And that was how I took another 2 years to get out. Just a few days before I was going to hand Ted our divorce papers, Kendall suddenly showed up at our house. I was surprised, but also really happy to see her. She greeted me with a big hug and told me she had some big news to share and that she was going to get her money back. I asked her what she meant, and she just asked me to call Ted and Ophelia downstairs. "Oh, hi, Kendall. What are you doing here?" "Nothing much, actually, except I happened to find something really interesting." "Ugh, you're a disgusting lawyer. Why have you brought your filth into this house?" "I would shut my mouth if I was you, Grandma." "That is no way to speak to your grandmother." "Whatever. You guys died to me the day you stole my money, Dad." "Your dad did not steal anything from you. He only helped a struggling child. But of course you and your mother can't seem to see what goodness really is." "Right. Would you call supporting your affair child over your actual child goodness?" "Affair child? What on earth are you talking about, Kendall?" "What I'm talking about is that I have 2 DNA test reports stating that Maeve is your child, Dad." "What? What are you saying? Those are fake." "I knew you'd say that. That's why I got 2 tests from 2 different but very acclaimed places." How did you manage to find that out?" "Well, Maeve and I got in contact after I graduated, and after we went drinking, she confessed everything to me. She felt horrible about how she dealt with it, so she made it up to me by agreeing to do a DNA test." I can explain. Valerie, I met a woman when I went on my first business trip when you were pregnant, and after drinking a bit too much, we slept together, and then it sort of became a habitual thing. She got pregnant and decided to move in next to us. I had no choice." "No, you had a choice, and you made it. I was going to do this later, but here are the divorce papers. You deserve nothing." "I fully agree with Mom, which is why I'm suing you, Dad, for stealing my college fund. See you in court." I couldn't believe what my life had come to. So that was why Ted had always been so uncomfortable around Cassie and Maeve. Were all the business trips he took after Kendall was born just an excuse to live next door and raise his second family? How filthy of a man was he to go and sleep with someone else when his wife was struggling with her pregnancy back home? I was filled with pure rage, but I was also relieved that Kendall was taking proper action against Ted's misdeeds. In the trial that happened after, Maeve herself testified to Ted's involvement in her childhood and all the lies that he had spewed to keep her a secret. Apparently he had given Kendall's money to Cassie because she threatened to out his secret to us if he didn't. She also told him that if she found out that he paid for Kendall's college, she would out him. She was jealous that my daughter was doing way better than hers, and this was her solution. The judge ruled in Kendall's favor, and Ted was ordered to pay her back, and also pay back any loan that she may have taken to fund her education. Kendall and Ted worked out a payment installment and deadline, and that was that. Kendall also helped me find another job closer to her and helped me move in. Ted signed the divorce papers without a fuss, and in just a few short days, so much changed. But all of it was for the better. I am now in a much happier place, and I'm overjoyed to see my daughter thriving and accomplishing more than I could have ever imagined. Thank you for listening.